has.
I mean, that's just such a powerful and inspiring thing for an individual. Find the right team, be part of that, and then you yourself, your passion, your efforts could actually make a big change.
Yeah.
A big impact. I got to ask you, so it's a whole nother different conversation I'm sure to have, but nuclear power as it currently stands, so using fission is extremely safe despite public perception.
It is the safest, actually.
So that's a whole nother conversation, but almost like a human bureaucratic physics engineering question of what lessons do you draw from the catastrophic events where the power plants did fail. So Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island. Chernobyl. What lessons do you draw?
Actually, 3 Mile Island wasn't really a disaster because nothing escaped from the thing. But
Chernobyl
and Fukushima have been, had obvious consequences in the populations and that live nearby.
What lesson do you draw from those that you can carry forward to fusion? Now, I know you can say that you're not going to have the same kind of issues, but it's possible that the same folks also said they're not going to have those same kind of issues. We humans, the human factor, we haven't talked about that one quite as much, but it's still there.
So to be clear, fusion has the intrinsic safety with respect to it can't run away. Those are physics bases. Technology and engineering basis of running again, anything that makes large amounts of power and heats things up has got intrinsic safety in it. And by the fact that we actually produce very energetic particles. This doesn't mean that there's no radiation involved in ionizing radiation, to be more accurate, in fusion. It's just that it's in a very different order of magnitude, basically. So what are the lessons in fusion? So one of them is make sure that you're looking at aspects of the holistic environmental and societal footprint that the technology will have. As technologists, we tend not to focus on these, and particularly in early stages of development. Like we just want something that works, right? But if we come with just something that works but doesn't actually satisfy the societal demands for safety and for we will have materials that we have to dispose of out of fusion. But there's technological questions about what that looks like. So will this look like something that you have to, put in the ground for 100 years or 5 years? And the consequences of those are both economic and societal acceptance and so forth. But don't bury those. Bring these up front, talk to people about them, and make people realize that you're actually, the way I would look at it is that you're making fusion more economically attractive by making it more societally acceptable as well too. And then realize is that, I think there's a few interesting, boundaries basically in this. So one of them, speaking of boundaries, is that successful fusion devices, I'm pretty sure will require that you don't have to have an evacuation plan for anybody who lives at the site boundary. Mm-hmm. So this has implications for what we build from a fusion engineering point of view, but it has major implications for where you can site fusion devices, right? So in many ways, it becomes more like, we have fences around, industrial heat sources and things like this for a reason, right? For personal safety. It looks more like that, right? It's not quite as simple as that, but that's what it should look like. And in fact, we have research projects going on right now at MIT that are trying to push the technologies to make it more look like that. I think that those are key. And then in the end, as I said, so Chernobyl is physically impossible, actually, in a fusion system.
From a physics perspective.
From a physics perspective, you can't run away like it did at Chernobyl, which was basically human error that, of letting the reactors run out of control, essentially.
Human error can still happen with fusion-based reactors.
So, but in that one, if human error occurs, then it just stops, and this is done. And all of those things, this is the requirement of us as technologists and developers of this technology to not ignore that dimension, in fact, of the design. And that's why, me personally, I'm actually pouring myself more and more into that area, because this is going to be, I actually really think it is an aspect of the economic viability of fusion, because it clearly differentiates ourselves and also sets us up to be about what we want fusion to be. Is that, again, on paper, fusion can supply all of our energy, all of it. So this means I want it to be like really environmentally benign. But this takes engineering ingenuity, basically, to do that. Yeah.
Let me ask you some wild out there questions.
So we've been talking too much,
It's simple, practical things in everyday life. No, only revolutionizing the entire energy infrastructure of human civilization. Yes, but so cold fusion.
Yeah.
This idea, this dream, this interesting physical goals seem to be impossible, but perhaps it's possible. Do you think it is possible? Do you think down the line, somewhere in the far distance, it's possible to achieve fusion at low temperature?
It's very, very, very unlikely. And this comes from, so this would require a pretty fundamental shift in our understanding of physics, as we know it now. And we know a heck of a lot about how nuclear reactions occur. But by the way, what's interesting is that they actually have a different name for it. They call it leaner, like low energy nuclear reactions. But we do have low energy nuclear reactions. We know these. It's because these come from particularly the weak interaction, the weak force, nuclear force. And so it's at this point, as a scientist, you always keep yourself open but you also demand proof, right? And that's the thing.
It almost requires a breakthrough on the theoretical physics side. So something, some deeper understanding about quantum mechanics, something, so the quantum tunneling, some weird.
Yeah, and people have looked at that, but even like something like quantum tunneling has a limit as to what it can actually do. So there are people who are genuine, that really want to see it make it, but it sort of goes to the we know fusion happens at these high energies. Like we know this extremely accurately, and I can show you a plot that shows that as you go to lower and lower energy, it basically becomes immeasurable. So if you're going down this other pathway, it means there's really a very different physical mechanism involved. All I would say is that I actually poke in my head once in a while to see what's going on in that area. And as scientists, we should always try to make ourselves open. But in this one, it's like, but show me something that I can measure and that is repeatable, and then it's going to take more extraordinary effort. And to date, this has not met that threshold, in my opinion. Yeah.
So I'm even more so than just mentioning, or in that question, thinking about people that are claiming to have achieved cold fusion. Yeah. I'm more thinking even about people who are studying black holes, and they're basically trying to understand the function of, theoretical physicists. Yeah. They're doing the long haul